able to re-sign Clelin Ferrell. Dante Fowler bounces to the Cowboys, and I think it was Jason who went through his sack total, or maybe it was Cakes who went through his sack total earlier. Why bring back Ferrell? He didn't seem to have much of an impact.
Well, it's a guy they're familiar with. Maybe he does a lot for the defense outside of just providing sacks. I mean, I know we get knee-deep in sacks, and that's like the be-all, end-all for defensive ends especially. Maybe he does a lot of other things well that the team likes, and they're okay with him having 3.5, 4 sacks.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he does other things, like you said, that helps the defense.
And he's not going to make a lot of money.
He's not going to make a lot of money. He plays. He plays games.
Right.
He's not hurt all the time. He's pretty young. He's 20. Is he 28, 27?
I think he's 28 or about to turn. He's 27. He turns 28 in May.
Yeah, so
he's clearly had potential. I mean, he was drafted super high.
Hell yeah, he was the 4th pick in the draft.
If you look at the current depth chart, your ends are Dorrance Armstrong and Dietrich Wise Jr.
Right. And again, I think they're going to upgrade that in the upcoming NFL draft. Yeah. I would guess with their first and or second pick, they're going to address the edge and lack of talent there.
I would agree.
Like if they don't pick it with the first pick, the second pick, one of those two picks, I would have to think is going to be an edge rusher.
Maybe they're looking at the draft as being pretty edge heavy, and they think they can get quality players, if not the first round, the second round.
And maybe they're not worrying about, I know this sounds crazy, rushing the passer with their edges. There's been some speculation that Kinlaw will play a lot of defensive end and not necessarily on the interior to help them against the run. That's their biggest problem. They were 31st against the run. Who's their biggest threat? It's the Eagles. You have to figure out a way to slow down Saquon Barkley.
Correct. I mean, Kinlaw's a big dude, but I mean, I think they need one of those guys who are 6'4", 265, 270. You can just get around the ends. That Jack Sawyer kid from Ohio State, he's really good. The kid we talked about who was putting up crazy numbers at the combine, was it Landon Jackson?
Yep, from Arkansas. Yep.
He's 6'6", 260, I think, or 270. So, I mean, I guarantee they're looking at the draft going, all right, there's a stud right here we can get at 29, or if they wait until the second round, or if they acquire more picks. Maybe they get a couple players. But they clearly felt like Clelin was someone that they could use depth-wise, and maybe he's not the starter. He is now, but maybe he's not the starter when the season starts.
Barkley, by the way, had 414 rushing yards in 3 games against the Commanders in 2024.
So I'm saying,
let's bring that number down a little bit.
Again, we don't know how Dan Quinn is going to employ Kinlaw into the lineup, but there were some people online who were speculating that he's going to play that elephant end position, which apparently Quinn used in Seattle back in the day. And maybe that's the focus. We got to figure out a way to stop the run. They bring back also Jalen Holmes on a 1-year deal. So I know you seem to be on EB's side quibbling with my run it back. It's just that unlike last year, which was majority turnover year, right? I think they turned over the roster 60%.
Yeah.
It's not going to be nearly that. They are bringing back a lot of the guys depth-wise that were on the team last year.
Yeah, true. But they added 4 defensive linemen, Kinlaw, Wise, Goldman, and Jake Martin. They added 2 secondary players. They added Will Harris and Jonathan Jones. If you factor in Marshawn Lattimore they acquired in the trade last year, it's 3 new guys in the secondary. So, and then it doesn't count what they're going to do in the draft. And I think they're going to go defense. So I think they've made considerable changes defensively.
And unless he's going to play a dramatically different role, this elephant role that's been talked about, like Kinlaw's not a big sack guy. He's got 9.5 in his career. I know his career has been marred by injuries.
Missed a lot of games, yeah.
But in the last 2 years, where he's played 34 games, he's given you 4.5 and 3.5 sacks.
Well, he's a big
defensive tackle. Like you shouldn't expect 9 or 10 sacks out of this guy. I wouldn't think.
No,
I don't know if that's in his range of possibilities.
Who's their leading sack guy on their roster right now? I mean,
Armstrong
Armstrong had 5.
Yeah, probably him.
mean,
maybe Luvu. What Luvu finish with?
I'd have to look up the stats.
He had
from
8
last
sacks.
Year. Okay,
Luvu gave you 8 sacks.
And that's got to be the guy, because then it was Fowler after that with 10.5.
But I think they're going to make good decisions. They clearly did in the first year. They made some really big moves, especially on the offensive side with Debo and Tunsil. So I would assume they're going to focus on those positions in the draft, especially edge.
800-636-1067 if you want to chime in. Are you worried about this defensive line? Depth chart right now, like we said, Dietrich Wise is going to be one of your ends. Last year, Wise gave you 5 sacks in New England. You've got Dorrance Armstrong, who gave you 5 sacks here in Washington. Kinlaw and Payne. And then in terms of depth, you signed Ferrell. What did he finish with? 3 sacks? 3.5 sacks?
I think it was 3 or 3.5.
You've got Jean-Baptiste. They've added the depth with bringing back Sheldon Day. They signed Eddie Goldman.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to be better against the run.
Yeah, that's
it's almost harder to get worse against the run.
Yeah,
they were the
really
second
bad.
worst team in the league against the run. So I think that's been the focus. Like when they brought in Kinlaw, my immediate thought was Kinlaw. And I was like, well, he's kind of the Jonathan Allen replacement. Now, he's never been as good as Jonathan Allen, but he's younger, he's cheaper, and he's bigger. He's a big boy.
Well, they paid him. Didn't they pay him pretty good nut?
Yeah, 3 years,
Kinlaw?
$45 million.
Yeah, it's a pretty big nut.
With a bunch guaranteed.
Okay,
it's
see
not-
what,
it's
see
not
what the
what-
Vikings
It's
gave
not
Jonathan
what Allen
Allen?
got. No, but dude, $45 million is $45 million.
Yeah.
That's a big contract. Yeah. I mean, and Kinlaw, we've talked about it. He was a high draft pick, and he just missed so much time with San Francisco because of those injuries. But the last couple of years, he's played. I'm pretty sure the last couple of years he played full seasons.
I'm not convinced, though, that they go defensive line with that first pick.
Maybe not.
It makes sense to go and get an edge guy, but if there's a really good linebacker, they know they got to replace Bobby Wagner at some point.
Okay. Yeah, true.
Look, it's all going to depend on who Peters has ranked the highest.
Yeah.
If he has a linebacker that he loves that's sitting there at 29, he's going to take him. If he has the highest rated offensive tackle on the board or a guard, if he loves that guy there, they'll select him. I trust what Adam Peters is going to do with his board. If he wants to move back 6 or 7 spots, I think that's probably what you might want to do, because you've dealt away a lot of your picks for Lattimore, Debo, and Tunsil.
What if there's a dynamic running back that they love? Who's the guy that you love, Jason?
The Travion Henderson out of Ohio State.
Trey Henderson, yeah. He can move. I think he's projected as a second round pick, maybe a third.
I don't have a problem with picking a running back at 29 or 35. I would have a problem with picking a running back at like 4 or 6 or 8, unless you're guaranteeing me this guy's going to turn into CMC in his prime, or Saquon Barkley, or Jahmyr Gibbs. If you can tell me he turns into that guy, those guys are worthy of top 10 picks. But like the Jags about 7 or 8 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, when they took Leonard Fournette, I think at number 4, that's idiotic. You can't do that. But if you love a guy at 29 who's going to be dynamic in your backfield and is going to take some of the pressure off of B-Rob and Eckler, I don't hate that. I hate taking running backs in the top 10.
I think they're going to add to I know they're bringing back all the guys from last year. I assume they're going to add a younger guy in the draft. I don't know what round.
I thought that too, but like if they've already re-signed McNichols to a 1-year deal.
That's true.
Eckler still remains on his deal. B-Rob, I don't think is going anywhere.
But Eckler's got 1 year left.
He's got 1 year left.
McNichols 1 year.
Like, are you going to carry 5 running backs? Maybe.
I mean, if you get a younger guy who can move, he's got to make the roster. I just think I think they have to upgrade at running back. I think you guys would agree with me.
That's what I thought so too.
Yeah.
I thought they would. I didn't think they would just bring everybody back.
I think they're going to bring.
But apparently they have. That's been the move so far.
Maybe I don't know. Maybe they draft someone kind of late and he's a practice squad guy. I don't know. I just think they're going to add to that. But they don't have a ton of picks.
Not right now.
So unless they're adding to picks and trading down, it's going to be interesting to see what positions they target.
I'm willing to bet they're gonna trade back from either their first or their second round pick if anybody wants to take it. I'm confident in that. Now I've been losing so many bets of late. So if you want to just take advantage of me, here I am.
No, I kind of agree with you. I don't think Peters wants to do a draft without a 3rd round pick or a 5th round pick.
Yeah, and like the intel you're hearing about this draft is like players 25 to 40 are kind of all lumped together. So if you're sitting at 29, he's going to be calling everybody, hey, who wants to come up to 29? You got a guy you love? Because I want to move back to like 40 or 42 and gain a bunch of extra picks. I think that's just going to be the case. He wants some of those picks back.
I'll tell you this, Jason, you'll probably feel great about this because you were the highest of the four of us on the hiring of Dan Quinn.
Mm-hmm.
All these players love him.
He
got that
him.
A+ on that NFLPA report card.
Yeah,
and I think it was the corner that they just brought in, Will Harris, who said
safety out.
Yeah. He said that the culture and Dan Quinn were the reason that he ended up coming here.
You're hearing that from everybody. Like John Bates talked about, he didn't want to sign anywhere else. Jeremy McNichols said he just loved the room here.
Yep.
Like it's a constant thread amongst players. Look, it's a recruiting advantage for this team.
When Cakes and I went to that media friendly, happy hour that was hosted by the Commanders, we met Dan Quinn.
Yeah.
And we talked to him on the show when he was hired, and I met him years ago in college, but he doesn't remember me and I barely remember him. But you met him face to face.
Yeah.
He's just a good dude.
Sure. Seems
so
down to earth.
I can see why players would want to go play for him. And especially since they won 14 games.
Right.
So this is a good spot.
Yeah.
Snyder's gone, new ownership.
Jay Daniels is here.
Peters is the man.
Yeah.
So this is like one of the new spots that these guys want to come to.
Right.
So hopefully that continues.
800-636-1067. You want to chime in on the Commanders? You can. We'll talk some NCAA tournament with Mark Packer from the ACC Network coming up at 9:25 here on the Junkies.